Okay, 3, 2, 1. We are live directly from Madrid, back with our coffee break with Coachman, my podcast interview show, where I have the honor to interview some of the most brilliant minds in our profession. Enjoy your coffee. My dear guest today is Professor Markus Blatz. Professor Markus Blatz, chairman of the restorative department at UPenn, one of the top dental schools in the world for sure. As I say, my boss, since he invited me to be a adjunct professor at his department, and I have the honor to be able to display this on my CV that I teach at UPenn because of him. And I have the honor to call him my boss over there. Markus Blatz, somebody that I admire since many, many years as a speaker, of course. I first saw him many times speaking on all the major congresses all over the world. His name is all over. Great lectures, great educational skills, great content, evidence-based content, combining science and clinical work. A beautiful combination of really supporting information from the scientific level, but Markus always kept a feet into the realistic clinical environment, meaning what really makes a difference for the average clinician, for the normal clinician, not going crazy with things that are not that relevant when we talk about real dentistry. So that was always something that I enjoyed on all the lectures from Markus. And today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, a very cool topic, a topic that interests me a lot, how to build a career as a teacher, how to build a career as a professor. If you enjoy teaching and you want to pursue an academic career, something that he did in a beautiful way. And of course, originally from Europe, moving to US. So I want to learn all the tricks of how to dig and find your spot, how to really invest on the right moves to increase the chances of success on that type of career. I think this is also very, very interesting. Many people ask me about it, actually. The other topic is about research and publishing articles. If you want to write a decent article, how do you structure a decent article? That's a question that I asked myself many, many times. There is a way to be accepted on the main journals. If you just have a cool idea, it doesn't mean your article is going to be accepted about decent journals. So understanding how to write a good article and also understanding how to evaluate the articles that you are reading. That's another topic that I want to explore with Markus. But to start, I want Markus to give his initial hello to the DSD community and give a little bit of the background of who is Professor Markus Blatz.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity, and welcome everybody. This is a great forum. I love your concepts about this coffee break. Of course, as I'm a big fan of you and your work, anyways. And it's so great, that we can work together in many different aspects. And so again, welcome everybody. I have my little coffee right here. We can talk about whatever you want to. Let's start out my career. Well,
where do you come from? Where were you born?
Exactly. I was born in Germany. So I grew up in Germany, in Heidelberg, Germany, and I was a musician before I even thought about dentistry.
By the way, very good musician. Very good musician.
But before I even thought about dentistry, to be honest, but I was a drummer mainly. I still play for fun, but then I had some tendinitis, and I had to make some changes in my career, and thought about, hey, what are you gonna do? I was devastated.
Tendinitis from playing drums.
Pardon?
You had tendinitis from playing drums.
Yes.
But that was to be a dentist. That is very good for your tendons as well, right?
Quite honestly, I was struck. I didn't know what to do with my life, to be honest. And because I played music, I started 5 years playing the guitar and play some guitar and other instruments, and all I did was playing music. And honestly, I had no idea what I was going to do. And it was actually, and I have to say, you asked me what is the right path. I pretty much followed some of the voices that I heard. And quite honestly, so I was actually, the idea to become a dentist manifested itself when I was injured. I was competing in traditional martial arts at the time. And I was injured, and I had some fractures in my face, and I was in a Heidelberg hospital and got surgery and everything, and reconstructed parts of my face. And then there's dental students came in and said, "Oh, look at this. And what are you guys doing?" "Oh, we're dental students." "What is that?" And I thought about that. And I said, "Tell me more. What you guys doing?" And all of a sudden, cha-ching! This.
Really?
I'm serious. I swear to God. And I was about 20 at that time, in 1920. And but it kind of just struck me, So, and then I was going like, "Hey, dentistry, that sounds good. It actually combines everything I love. I love working with my hands. I love getting into things. I love working with people. I just felt, all of a sudden I felt, you know what? That's the right thing for me." And then it's a little bit easier to make the switch in Germany, to be honest. So I applied for dental school and started out there working as a lab tech to buy some time until I then got into dental school, because they have to do all those tests and all that, which I had not done before, of course. Never thought about it before. And there you go. And that's where it started. And I can tell you, out of this desperation, or and not knowing what to do, came this decision, which of course was the best thing in my life. I'm sure I am where I'm supposed to be. I love my spot. I love what I'm doing, and that's fantastic.
That's always a good feeling. And now you can play drums and do music as a hobby. So
exactly, I don't have to worry about paying bills with playing drums. Thank God.
Now before we go into your initial career as a dentist, and how you thought about pursuing the academic path instead of a clinical path or whatever other path, we're going to go into that. But since we are living the moment that we are living, I just want to start, with an initial message, your take on all that is happening, from your experience. You're connected to so many great people all over the world. What are your initial feelings about how this is impacting dentistry? And, how do you think we're going to get over this?
We just discussed this before, and we have this group, and with international, all the experts coming together and talking about it. And it's just amazing how many different opinions you're getting right now. It's just, we're learning day by day more about it. And I think that's it. There's not one thought process, because it's changing on a daily basis. That's what makes it so difficult, And I mean, I had other interesting, I would say, events in my life that had to change paths, and one was we went through Hurricane Katrina. I can tell you a little bit more about how it all went, going to the U.S. and all that, but where it also was pretty devastating, and I had to make some changes. This is a little bit more difficult because nobody knows exactly what's coming after. I mean, it's easy as if something breaks down, it just build it up again. But this is a little bit different because we don't know exactly how it's going to look like. And quite honestly, we're working on it. Of course, we at the university, and people think, "Oh, you have it easy. You're at the university. You're not the business." Excuse me? We are a private university. I mean, we lose hundreds of thousands of dollars every single day not having our clinics open. It's not that we are sitting on a very comfortable situation here. It's actually very uncomfortable, and we have to be creative with that. So right now we have many task forces, international people coming together and discussing what would be the right way to overcome this, and how we present ourselves to our patients, and then how we're going to do dentistry in the future. And I'm sure there will be some changes, and actually some changes maybe even for the better, because we were it was just rushing in, rushing out dentistry, and doing too much destructive dentistry, not thinking enough about prevention and minimally invasive dentistry. And I think the mindset will change to some degree of our patients, and also the mindset of us has to change and be more cognizant of that, which actually feeds exactly into the philosophies that we are teaching right now anyways. And we're really focusing on think about prevention, not destructive dentistry, not everything and in and out. And I think we will be forced into that thought process, and I think actually it's it could be a benefit coming out of this devastating event. And like I said, I've been through a couple of those in my life before, and that's why I'm not fearful. But I think it's going to have an impact on how we do dentistry, and actually, I hope it does.
And the university is now completely closed. Our emergency services are still open. How is the university operating right now, and how are you guys planning to reopen?
So we actually close very quickly. We go by what the university as a whole, University of Pennsylvania, of course, comes and expresses, listen, we close this, we close that, we close the hospital for this and that. So we are, of course, in a chain of command where we follow, of course, guidelines by the university. And we have been closed for conventional clinic care since the middle of March, actually, and very quickly actually switched over to teaching everything online. We were in a not so bad position because a few years ago I started a whole team on online education. We have a learning technologies team that focuses just on that. They had developed already, much of these concepts, blended learning online, and it's why we had a good amount of resources already established that help us to make that switch relatively quickly. But we actually now also still every single hour a student had spent in the school before, even in our clinics, is now covered with a seminar, with a lecture. We have about 500 students all over. In my department, we teach about 70% of the entire curriculum. So it's busy. Say it this way. But we have to think. We have to be creative. We had to be creative, thinking also about. So I mean, the thing is that one of our classes, the senior class, is very close to graduation. So how do we graduate them? Some of them had not completed all their clinical, requirements. Maybe actually most of them have, but and they've also competency exams, and we modified them. We're giving them one-on-one exams now online. There's 2 examiners talking to the students, guiding them through clinical scenarios, and say, listen, what is this picture? What would you do next? Explain, because of course, the hand skills by now. I mean, if you cannot pep a crown 1 month before you graduate, we wasted our time and we wasted your money as well. But the mindset to putting the pieces together, what do you do in a certain situation, is, for my opinion, the much more important one anyways, because hand skills, you just practice. That, depends on how you put the pieces together.
Yeah. So you, of course, investing a lot on online education now. Do you feel that even if we go back to normal, let's say whatever normal, new normal, and it's okay to go back to school, in September, let's say, or even in June now, do you think some of the strategies that this virus pushed us to implement to do something now will stay with us afterwards when it comes to a university? For example, many of the content and the webinars and the online educational process that you guys developed, are you guys planning on keeping some of them afterwards?
Oh, like I said, we have done this actually before already, but many of them also we owe it to our students. We don't play videos for them. We give them instruction, and so there's many of our seminars we're giving are live. So I'm giving hours and hours a day. We're giving instruction directly because they deserve that attention. We don't hide in the basement and then send them a couple of videos and say be happy with that. No. We instruct them because that's what they deserve. By the way, you also ask how do we and when we do go back. We're planning to go back. So we had emergency care over the entire time basically, but only emergency care. And but we're planning to go back to some clinic activity in mid or late May. So that's coming up. We're planning for that right now. And then, of course, the question comes up, what protection do you use? What kind of mask do you use? But our concept behind that, because it's very confusing, aerosol, how problematic is it or not? I mean, we have this discussion at extensio, and every day pops up a different opinion. What we're trying to do, we want to make our patients as comfortable as possible. It should be cleaner than any supermarket they go to right now. It should just be, they should feel comfortable that they can come and see us. We're not going overboard, but we certainly, have, a good amount of protection, developing a protocol to make sure that our patients feel safe. And that's the thing. Some people may say, well, you don't really need this, you need that. we want to make sure that people feel safe, and that when they enter our building, they understand, listen, these people care about us. I want to make sure, we get the proper protection, and that's what we're talking about.
Now, in the clinic, what modifications regarding biosafety during this emergency times? What modifications that you guys implemented to see the emergencies right now compared to what you used to? What are the different things that you're doing now, and how do you see, things in September when the clinics are back? What are the changes that you see that will happen?
By the way, and like I said, clinics are back. They will be back in a few weeks, in 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, so before
we go, because we go year round.
Yeah.
We don't have. There's not a lot of breaks that we have actually. We go year round. So it really.
How the clinic will be functioned? What will be the differences from 2 months ago to 2 weeks ahead of us?
Of course, I know the first thing is we look at all the surfaces. We have these student base that are relatively close to each other, so we have to make sure there's sufficient space, but we have separators in between, so we should be okay. There's sufficient distance there. But it starts
right.
Yeah, and it starts, of course, how the patients even come in. I mean, there's going to be a separate entrance. You come in here, you go out there, because think about it, we have over 1,000 people go into the building in and out, and that's just faculty, staff, and students.
Mm-hmm.
We're not even talking about patients yet. So we funnel them, you go in there, and get questions asked, if we have tests available, we'll do that as well. Is that happening? And then, but then, of course, the setup, remove any clutter. There should not be any spaces. The good thing is we don't have much counter space for our students anyways. And so that's going to be an easier one. Personal protection, of course, full gowns, shoe covers. There's going to be N95 masks. There will be face shields, basically. And we have a protocol, how you change it and many times to change it. So for us now, the main thing is getting all these equipment for our students to be able to maintain the clinics as well. Yes?
You think in 2 weeks, probably 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be ready to?
Yes. We're planning to open in 2 to 3 weeks, yeah. With those changes, That's the plan, at least. But it depends on the university, and the university depends on the governor, and the governor depends on, there's always somebody we depend on. As much as we want to do this.
It's good that it's good to hear, every time for the last few days, I've been hearing people planning the way they are coming back, and that just makes us all feel better.
Oh, yeah.
We're coming back, we have a plan. I tell dentists about the concept of the 3 weeks plan. Plan now how you're going to go back to work, even if back to work is, you don't know when, but plan now and have it very clear what you're going to do. If you have to start Monday, how this Monday is going to look. And this is just psychologically super positive, because you have a goal, you see the light at the end of the tunnel, the phone calls that you need to do, what you need to schedule, what type of training you're going to give to your staff. So this is a strategy that I like very much. And only by hearing others saying, we have a plan, we're going back, that's already very, very nice. Another question. Lecture rooms, we know in university, you go into a lecture room, you have like 50, 60 people sitting.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So this is another thing. We will keep up, as you mentioned as well, the online teaching. And what we'll do, we'll extend clinic hours. We'll have extended clinic hours, and because it's going to take more time. It's going to take more time to turn the chairs over. It's going to take more time to protect everybody. It's just going to take more time. So we extend clinic hours, and then we have our lectures very early or very late, during the day, and
online.
In the evening. So early in the morning we start clinic a little bit later. So when we have early lectures, we can make sure students can come in, and if they want to watch it, from someplace else, because we don't. Lecture halls filled with 200 people is not going to be happening in the foreseeable future. We will have some space available, of course, for the people who want to look at things, from the lecture rooms. But then, of course, there's sufficient spacing, and make sure there's enough. The good thing, actually, I have to say, we had a big reconstruction not too long ago, and we developed very specific lecture areas that that you could change very quickly in larger rooms, smaller rooms, bigger rooms, so and that helps quite a bit. I'm glad we did that, because now we're not confined to one big lecture hall. No, we have several rooms that we can actually divide off, and that helps quite a bit. They're very flexible in that sense.
For example, do you see that in 1 month, for example, you're gonna have a little room with 10 people around the table discussing a case? You're gonna see people together like this, or?
Like I said, I mean, it's going to be much less. It's going to be smaller groups, absolutely. 5 to 10 people maximum, and with the proper distance. Yes, yes. But again, the lectures will still be offered online, and people can watch it from different areas. They can watch it from home. That's why they're going to be very late in the evening or very early in the morning. And then students have the ability to listen to those. So we will keep it up completely. But the same is true. Listen, we also teach pre-clinics, and the same is true for a laboratory. Having a laboratory filled with 100 students is not going to happen. So we have to space them out properly. We will stagger them in different groups, 3 groups during the day, and handle it like that. But it's you have to have a plan. That's for sure.
And in your city in Philadelphia, for example, do you know when restaurants will open again?
Again, it's I don't know for sure. The governor of Pennsylvania has also put a plan in place how they kind of in a certain order opening up certain areas, but it looks like it's going to start in about 2 weeks. The first things opening up and losing up some of the strict regulations that we had.
It is insane to think about. It's really insane to think about the fact that we are talking about this. I'm like, I cannot believe we are talking about when a restaurant will be open. It's really crazy, but
it is what it is,
And smile. That's what we need to do. And smile.
But we didn't finish on my path yet. I want to go back to that topic or not?
I want you to go back into your dental school experience and get into the decision-making process of why pursuing the career that you have today.
Oh, okay. So when I went to dental school, like I said, I did since I loved the topic so much, and I started out, working as a lab tech, or did I start an apprenticeship? I didn't finish because I got into dental school quicker than I thought I would. But
you already knew when you got into, this is important, when you got into dental school, you already enjoyed teaching, or teaching was not something new?
My high school teacher always told me I should become a showmaster or something.
Okay, so you had some talent.
So I said, I don't know. Maybe you didn't think I wasn't worth for anything else, but I don't know if it was a compliment or not.
I got it. Okay.
But
you were definitely good on stage because of the music, so you had that kind of.
I think yes. I think sharing. I always enjoyed sharing good things, and it was music at the time, as you said, and that was always part of my life. But it's more to share, and to be quite honest, I feel this similar way when I talk to an audience. It's like playing music. I mean, I would rather maybe play the drums. I don't know, but it's the same thing, because what you want to do, you want to give people a message, and you make them happy. You want them to come out and say, listen, that was great. I love it. And give them the right message. That's what it's all about. It's not about me or about, it's about giving them a message they feel good about, I always enjoy that. I have to admit that, from playing music. And, but honestly, I was in my pre-clinic lab. I'll never forget that moment. And, so pre-clinic, and you do stuff you do there, of course. And then Jörg Strup, who is one of my mentors in Freiburg, Germany. Some people may know, one of the most famous, I think, prosthodontists in the world. And it comes from this whole Peter Scherer, Zurich kind of, background, and fantastic aesthetic dentistry and scientist. I mean, unbelievable. And he walked in the door to check on his people. I looked at him. Oh my God. One day I want to be like him. I mean, I never will be like him because he's the greatest. But I was so impressed also by the way he was able to, again, be strict to himself and what he required from us as students, and also from his faculty. But also on the other hand, just do excellent work, and just focus on excellence in the teaching and the science. And the science was very important. And that was actually changed, my life as well, because from that moment on, I knew that my life is going to be in the academic world. I just knew it. I
So
just
this
knew it.
is a topic that I always cover in many interviews, the power of a good mentor, right?
Oh, yeah.
The shortcut. This is what every student or every young professional should be looking for. It's to find that mentor, find the inspiration, find that role model that really can inspire you through a path, right? So you had one of the best, looking.
But it's difficult to I mean, it's difficult to say. Well, you have to find it, because sometimes it just happens, and you see somebody saying, "No, this is awesome." I want to.
You can be open to it, right?
Yeah, but yeah, of course, seek. The thing is that I think you have to be open, and what I see sometimes, some of the young upcoming, they just think they can do everything by themselves, and they can do it on their own, and they have the nice pictures and everything, but that's not But then you realize that you don't become anything, at least not sustainable, just on your own. You want to learn, keep open, and work hard, and that's what it is. And that's what I learned from them. I remember, Stu was like, we could see we were like the assistant, professors, and we had our treatment base, and we could see his office window, and he said, "Nobody leaves the building until the light goes off in my office there." And that was sometimes pretty late. We're like in there, like, okay, God, we gotta work.
So he was a tough mentor. He was a very strict mentor.
Yes, and that's good. Honestly, I'm sorry to say, but that's good. Oh, everything's great. Then I mean that's what's pushing you. And so when I then I was then went through my dental school career, of course, and then I also knew I wanted to become part of his department if possible. And at that time it was quite a task, because there was excellent people, Markus Blatz, all the people who came from his. We have Weil Art, we have so many. Matthias Kern was the one who hired me, actually. So there was like just unbelievable people. The number of chair people and deans and other that came out of that department is just. But it also shows you that he, as a mentor, was also able to give and let you grow. He wanted you to grow. You have some people that, in the beginning, they want to help you, but then all of a sudden they go, you know what? Maybe he's getting too big now, and he's taking some. He never was like that. He was always supportive, and that's a big thing as well. You don't find that often, to be honest.
No.
And
type of mentor that you need to be attached to, right? The one that you feel that really doesn't matter if you even become bigger than the mentor, right? That's the feeling of a good mentor. Just grow people as much as they can.
And I was lucky. I can tell the truth. I was just lucky to be able to, because, by the way, my first choice in Germany, you can choose, which university you go to. You say, you know what, this is my first choice, second and third, and then you will be distributed, all over the country, basically. Freiburg was not my first choice. And in the beginning I was like, Freiburg, but it just happened. And well, that's why I cannot say, oh, I was always determined. Some things happened in my life that I was very happy about, But then you take the opportunity or not, Yeah.
So then you just continue the path. During dental school, you already saw, I'm not gonna be just, I'm not gonna just open my private practice somewhere. I want to focus on this academic path, right?
I knew that. And then I started to do my doctorate thesis with a guy called Kappert, and he was one of the top guys in ceramics at the time, and he inspired me as well. A great guy, just fantastic, and he was just awesome. I mean, he was one of those true professors. You had his office, and he was smoking like crazy. You come in, everything was like blurry. You couldn't see him, and said, "Hey, professor, are you in there?" He's going, I was like, "Who are you?" "Oh, I'm your doctorate student." "Oh, okay." Great guy. He was actually the one who really worked on the lithium disilicates in the very beginning, and then aluminum oxides, and the zirconias. We worked on that very early on. I then had another opportunity to work with him, and at a research institute that's called Fraunhofer Institute for the Mechanics, and so it was a combined. My doctorate was combined with the university, but also with this with this research institute. And that research institute, I mean, they had like people who are close to Nobel Prizes and whatever. And I'm in there doing my little, I did studies on wear abrasion of ceramics and things like that. And they had people, popping champagne bottles, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm not worthy to be even be here.
So this guy was probably the one who maybe helped you pick the restorative material side of dentistry.
Yes, absolutely.
You had many different areas that you could go, right?
If my physics teacher would know that I'm known for ceramics research, he would roll over in his grave 5 million times. I can guarantee you that. He thought I was useless in physics,
You see, the world goes around.
Yeah, but it was very, again, it was very inspiring. And in the end, I'm telling you this about this research institute because that also, pushed me and say, you know what, do something that's meaningful, do something right, and there's all these people who do this great stuff, and build a team, work with people, do not think you can do everything by yourself. Team up with these guys, that know more than I do in a certain area, and take advantage of that, but not for myself, but for the things that we're doing. And so after that, I did my doctorate there, and I was an assistant professor. And then, we did a concurrent training in prosthodontics and perio as well, with Herzl and those guys. And I did a lot of peri at the time, actually, a lot of surgery and plastic periodontal surgery with the microscope. And Shub then said to me, Markus, as he said to everybody who wanted to go through his path to become a professor, which is a long path in Germany, to become a full professor, you have to go through different steps, He said, in order for you to do this with us, you have to go to the US for 2 years. And everybody had to do that who wanted to go through this career path. And so he said, go to the US for 2 years. And then another, I would say, great coincidence. I was always a big fan of Gerard Sheesh. Gerard Sheesh, it's sad that some of the big names don't resonate with the younger people much anymore. But these were our absolute heroes, and he gave us talks a couple of times, and I met him, the best aesthetic dentist I could think of. It's his eyes, how he looks at things are just crazy. So I saw him
on the same day as myself. Yeah.
What? Oh yeah, it's
Gerard
awesome.
Sheesh was born.
There you go. I knew there was a connection there.
Now, I just to emphasize this, since we have younger people watching, just repeat the name of these 3 amazing professionals that you mentioned. You said Peter Scherer, you said the ceramic guy, and now Gerard Sheesh. As you said, these names need to resonate for the younger people. We need to memorize these names. These are icons of modern restorative dentistry, right?
Jörg Stroop, certainly, and again, then Gerard Sheesh, who. I met him at a couple meetings, and I'll never forget that moment as well. And we kind of, connected, and we talked. And I said, you know what? How about US? And you need somebody there. And at that time, it was not easy, to start an academic career in the US. And I didn't actually plan on that originally because it was only 2 years, and then go back to Germany and become professor there and go through the ranks there. And very early on, when we connected with Jerry, he said, you know what, we have to rethink the 2-year thing, and let's see what happens there. And I always kept my option open. Another thing I always did, by the way, I kept a couple options open. And so Jerry Sheesh took me over.
For people to understand, that was New Orleans. So you moved from Freiburg to New Orleans, right?
Yes. So Jerry Sheesh was chair at the prosthodontics department at LSU, which at that time, you could add a few more, but was, in my point of view, one of the best prosthodontics department. I mean, you had, Avishai Sadan, they had a couple of people who also became extremely, icons in the field. And they took me under their wing. And so I started out there. The good thing for me was I was not just like a research assistant, but he offered me a faculty position from the get-go, so I could teach. And also, what was very important for me, to practice, because the clinical part, I am somewhere in between. I will explain it a little bit later. I'm not a pure scientist, and some people would say I'm not a pure clinician either. I'm a curious clinician. That's what I would call myself.
Curious.
But then,
how do you call it yourself?
A curious clinician. I'm just curious.
That's fantastic. I love it. Curious clinician. Let me write this down.
So I'm not as, don't call me a scientist, because I'm not this. And I will talk about that in a moment, about career projections, where scientists, true researchers, work in a whole different world, and I'm somewhere in between. And some people hold it against me, but hey, it is what it is.
We're gonna
And
talk
then
about we're gonna talk about this combination because it's very, very important. We need people. We need full clinicians. We need full researchers, and we need the curious clinicians as well. The
hybrids.
research and the one. Now, before we go into that topic, you mentioned something very, very important. You went to Freiburg, and these top guys took you under their wing. Then you moved to LSU, one of the top programs in US, and Jarashish and the top guys there took you under their wing as well. And this shows something very, very important. As I usually say, you need to be open. You need to find mentors. Mentors will give you the shortcut and will give you the expedite process for achieving your goals as a professional. But the thing is that you need to make is not only you identifying who is your mentor, but is convincing the mentor to invest on you. Because a person like Sheesh has hundreds of students, and everybody's like, I want to be the pupil number one of Sheesh.
Yes.
But there's certain things that, and this is every time I interview a successful person, they always had that moment in their life where an important mentor took them under their wing. So they did something right in terms of standing out, catching the attention of that important person, important professor. What do you think are the characteristics if a young person, a young professional is listening? How do you stand out? How do you show the mentor that is worth investing on you to make them take you under their wing?
It's two things. I think it's, of course, talent. You want to have somebody that you want to invest in that has some talent, and of course you want to show that. But another thing is, you want to be humble as well. I see too many people also, they go like, oh, I'm the greatest already without having achieved anything. It's like, just be humble and say, listen, I want to learn from you. And also learning means listening. You want to listen. And that's a key thing. So if I work with a student and I tell him, listen, why don't you change the prep here? And he says, you know what? No, I don't really care. Okay, listen, if you can do everything yourself, it's all right. But I think, be humble. I think that's also, it's a stage that you go through. And of course, nowadays, it's maybe a little bit different because we can see these people, making millions on YouTube, but just, looking at toys or whatever. And then you go like, why the heck should I, go through this 10 years of mentorship and whatever? But it's not about only the money and the fame and the success. I think the path is also enjoyable because you see, you can become better, you progress. And that's something I enjoy. I'm never done. I will never be done. We keep going, we keep learning about things that excites us. And that process, I think, is even more important, at least from my standpoint, than, being the most famous, most richest or whatever, because, that's how I see it.
Now, you mentioned, that's a good lesson here. I'm making notes because every time I finish an interview, I make a little summary and then I share with people the insights, the highlights of the interview. So, to really capture the attention of a mentor, to allow you to be the picked one, because that is a very important moment on your career. You mentioned, of course, you need to have some kind of talent. So you need to be ready to ask for that position of a protected, let's say, pupil. You need to be humble. You need to learn how to listen. That's very important because younger people, many times, they have a hard time listening, right? And I could add one, and I want to know if you agree. Be useful, meaning every mentor is a successful person, and every successful person is busy as hell with several projects ongoing, always looking for good talent that can help them make things happen, put things into motion. So I always thought that when you approach a mentor, a possible mentor, besides having the talent, being humble and listening, somehow understanding how to be useful.
Absolutely.
Saying, I can do it for you, professor, from cleaning the floor to all the way, writing,
Absolutely right.
taking pictures, or even learning things or bringing to the table things that your mentor doesn't know, new
Well,
technologies, little tricks that.
exactly.
So you agree that being
So
useful,
true.
right? You're probably looking for those people, right?
No, no, this was actually very true, and I can tell you. So I think that now, recapturing it. Of course, Jerry liked. I was also, very interested in clinics and try to be as good as a clinician as possible. But of course, they were lacking at the time that scientific part, and so that combination, and that's why. By the way, okay, I had never dreamt that people would know me for how to bond to zirconia. Because I'm telling you, there was you hit the nail on the head. So what I brought there was at the time was that scientific aspect, and Jerry knew that we're lacking on that part. I mean, of course, they had the dental materials department with John Burgess was very strong, and they helped me actually because we had no research in the department at the time, or very little actually. I shouldn't say no, but very little. And then he said, Marcus, I want you to build a prosthodontic research program. He said, what do I want you to do? He said, like, zirconia is becoming somewhat popular. How about bonding zirconia? What? I was doing microsurgery all the time. And then what the heck, Of course, I had a dental materials background. That's why I was very happy. And very quickly, which just very quickly, we moved ahead, did tons of studies, worked as hard as we could. I didn't have much time. And people always tell me, oh, I don't get time for this, done with that. Listen, I taught the full day. I practiced there, and the research I did after hours and at night, and we very quickly. So I never forget, like 2 years, 3 years into that, at the dental research meeting at IDR, we had like 20 papers, 20 students presenting. We put a team together, students, faculty, and just dig down and work hard. That's what we did.
That's exactly it. It doesn't matter if you're just starting. There's always something that you can bring to the table, some kind of experience, some kind of expertise that this mentor can be looking for or not even thinking about. But you say, look, I can do this. You guys are not doing it. So the conclusion for me here is that as you approach a mentor, you need to take a quick look at what is going on and say, they're missing that. They're not exploring this. There's something going on here that could be better. Let me, even if I don't know exactly how to do this, I see that they're missing that. So I'm going to study a little bit. I'm going to come back and say, dear mentor, dear professor, you're not exploring this opportunity here. May I help you? Can I show my quality to you, right?
Absolutely. And that's exactly how it works. I mean, I'm now in that position, actually more on the mentor side. And this is where I'm supposed to be, now. And you hit the nail on the head there. Very good point.
Fantastic. Now, let's go into the topic you mentioned, this mix between clinician and researcher and how important it is to have this link. And this is going to connect us to two topics that we're going to talk: evidence-based dentistry. That sentence that you taught me this sentence, evidence-based dentistry, is probably the best definition of a curious clinician, right? Because it's practice together on the same sentence.
Yes. And by the way, just to wrap this up, my path, after I was a couple of years at LSU, there was Hurricane Katrina, of course, had before, though, after a couple of years, I felt it's time for me to maybe, have my own department somewhere. And then I applied for Penn, actually, and then a couple of others, but I always liked the University of Pennsylvania. Actually, the Hurricane Katrina in 2005 delayed my move because I just didn't want to leave the university that had given me so much, and we stuck around for a couple of months and a year almost, and just to help out and rebuild a dental school there. But then I agreed to an earlier discussion that I had with the University of Pennsylvania to make the move and become chairman of restorative there. But you asked me about the combination. That's for me key. So when you look, for example, at some of the big research meeting, you look at some of the research that's being published. If it's not clinically relevant, if it's not helping to improve dentistry, in my point of view, it's meaningless. It's worthless. And this is why for us, of course, in my world, publications are very important, but also it's important to spread that message. And I need you guys help with that as well. I'm just exploring a whole new world, which is the whole Instagram and everything online world, where the younger generation is very much engaged.
Yeah.
My world is functioning in number of publications, quality of publications, how many citations do you get. This is how we judge good scientists in my world. But I also see that now many people offer their opinions very easily to hundreds of thousands of people,
Yeah.
without much filter, actually.
Too easy.
And this is why your responsibility, Christian Coachman, is a very huge one. And I'm glad you're giving us the opportunity to talk about it.
No, we need to find a balance. Of course, before social media, there was the other problem where knowledge and know-how was kind of ultra protected and very close to certain groups, etc. And then came social media, online, internet, whatever, and just destroyed any kind of protection that you could have over information. And now we have the other extreme where there's too much information, there's too much people saying, do like this, do like that, this is the right way. There's too many teachers online. Everybody is posting and saying, I'm a teacher here, this is the way I do, look at me right there. So I believe we're gonna have to find a balance ahead of us in the near future,
And that's why there's two things for me in that context, and first of all, I always tell my mentees and people, who also, of course, want to aspire in both worlds and want to be in both worlds, say, listen, put some meat on the bone. I mean, you can talk about how nice your preparation was, this and that, but when you do your own research, you're going to be so much more powerful. It's going to be so much more impactful what you do. What you mentioned though about this online, of course, that opens another whole nother can of worms, because much of that is unfiltered. I'm glad to see that there's very good people out there who are not unfiltered, who use the evidence, who use the science, and are critical of it. And this is why today, by the way, so when I went to dental school back, everybody says that it's a stupid saying, when I did that. But we were taught, okay, you read this article, you read that article, and then you know everything about the topic. Nowadays, it's very different. I mean, there's new journals popping up, and typically, they have to be peer reviewed. By the way, that means there's a panel that looks at the quality of the science, and there's all these online journals popping up as well. So for us now, in our teaching, it's much more important to teach our students what is good science versus bad science, so they can differentiate it. That's the key.
That's what I want to explore a little bit. I want to explore that, as we mentioned. The problem of today is not anymore finding the information, but is filtering the information. Everybody can access everything. So a couple of tips in terms of what are the journals, how do you classify a journal, and how do you understand if an article is well structured?
Well, like I said, the first thing that we're trying to do is tell our students, of course, to be to be critical. But you can only be critical if you know the subject matter. If you have no idea what a bias in a study is, if you have no idea what randomization is, you cannot judge it. And listen, I could tell you anything I want to, and I can find a reference somewhere. I could tell you, listen, the silicate is great. I can tell you it's bad. I think the zirconia is good, bad. Everything's out there, unfortunately. So, but for us to filtrate that information, we have to also understand. And we are, it's dental medicine. It's not just mechanics. So I think we need to keep our heads, in that subject as well, and understanding what is good science versus bad science. And then it's much easier to understand, hey, we should do this or we should not do this. And that's why our students have to do a systematic review of the literature. There's not just pulling articles. Hey, I find these different articles and this is what I conclude from it. No, when you have a strategy, you have to go into the literature, and you have to, with a search strategy, with certain criteria, then develop a systematic literature review. And by that, you apply from the get-go certain criteria. these studies, I want to look, let's say, for example, what's the performance porcelain fused to metal versus porcelain fused to zirconia crowns? Boom.
Mhm.
Good clinical question. That's how it starts. You have to have a good clinical question. And then
Start
you
with the-
filter.
That's a good start. Start with a good question.
Yeah, it's called a PICO question. It's the first, that's how you start it, a good clinical question. And then
Question?
it's a PICO question. That's what the terms, when we're not going to get too deep into the subject, but it starts with it. It starts with the proper clinical question.
Yeah.
And
So
and from there on,
then let's use the question you mentioned. Comparing
exactly.
bonding to metal, bonding to zirconia.
Yes. And then you have certain criteria, what you're looking for. Should it be clinical studies? Yes. Should it be randomized trials? Well, if you have them or not. What kind of trials are you looking at? And then you use keywords and go through the dental literature, and then you go, whatever you find with those keywords, you go through these articles. And then you see, do these articles answer my question, yes or no? Because you may punch in zirconia, PFM, crowns, and find 20,000 articles. Maybe only 20 of those will really answer your question. And then you look at the quality of these articles. Was there bias? There's so many papers out there that test something, but everybody knows what material it is when they look at the patient again. So there's a lot of bias in there because there's not a blinding process. There may not be any control. So the percentage of success don't tell you a whole lot. Because it's so you have certain criteria, and then you come out with a clinically relevant conclusion. Hopefully, you not always do it, and many times we find that we just don't have enough evidence. Unfortunately, that's why systematic reviews have also come under some scrutiny for that. But it's not so much in that context for students to find all the answers. Is to learn how to judge good science from bad science, and that is the key here in that process. And just that mindset. So they have to understand fundamentals in statistics. They have to understand again what are the ground rules for a good study and a bad study. And I think that's a quality that you have to learn.
Now, good journals, they, of course, understanding what are the good journals is already a good filter, right? Because as you said, there's so many journals now. So just to give us some suggestions here on the field of restorative dentistry, materials for restorative, more on that area, what are the most important journals that we have internationally, you would say?
So, I mean, there's the good thing is, in our scientific world, like I said, which is a little bit different from there's a certain ranking, and the ranking goes, we call it impact factor, and the ranking goes by that. So the journals being ranked by the number of citations from other journals they're getting. So if you have a journal that many other scientists read and then quote in their own research, it shows it must be good research, okay? And so this impact factor ranking is one of them. And then the authors are being judged as well. We are being judged by how many citations do I get per paper. So the scrutiny we're being put under is a totally different one from the clinical world. That's why the career projection is very different. So if you publish a lot in not good journals, your H index or Hirsch index, is not great. If you publish few excellent articles in the top journals, you're better off. And this is why decision-making process is important. I mean, in the restorative world, we have a number of journals, and you can look it up pretty much in the specific rankings that we have. Of course, one of the top journals is, in general, is the Journal of Dental Research, which is, of course, one of the highly aspired to. It doesn't have maybe as many readers as other more clinically oriented journals, but I think my role is
so everybody is familiar to it.
My role is not necessarily to point people to read all these articles themselves. My role is to translate that information and make it and put it into into palatable pieces for the clinician to be able to use that information for their practices. And then, of course, in the restorative world, we have an International Journal of Aesthetic Dentistry, we have the International Journal of Prosthodontics, the Journal of Prosthodontics, Journal of Aesthetic and Restorative Dentistry. When you go in the PubMed, you will find some of the good journals. Of course, if you look through, I don't want to say many names, bad search engines, you will get bad journals. If you look for the good search engines like PubMed, you will find the right ones. Cochrane Library, it's just Scopus. These are the search engines that are focusing on the high quality journals. And right now, it makes our lives even more difficult. So there is typically, when you submit an article to a journal, there is a panel, a peer review panel that looks at the scientific aspect of it and sees, is the structure right? Is the scientific aspect, is it covered? Are there big mistakes in there? And then they send it back to you. You make changes, and it's why publishing an article is not just sending it there and just get it in print. It's a process as well. And the more higher ranked the journal is, of course, the higher the scrutiny to get published in there. And but now we have a lot of online journals as well that come, popping up on the internet, that some of them claim also to have a peer review process. But when you sometimes look at the stuff that's being published and then being read as valid information, and that's what drives me crazy. They said, oh, but it's published in this journal. But when you look at it, it's like, so,
no methodology, no systems, no nothing. Yeah. Now, going into the articles aspect of building an article, of course, there you have to, years, in dental school studying how to put an article together. But let's say you have a cool idea, you have a technique, you have or you have a comparison that you want to do. You want to write an article about a topic, right? What are the basic steps of structuring a good article? If you could, how do you teach your students this is how you build a good article?
Well, it depends again, and by the way, and that maybe makes you understand also the whole process of impact factors and peer review. So it's very difficult today in a more scientific oriented journal to publish a case, to publish a technique is very difficult, because one of the reasons is that they will not get cited as much. So the journals are not really willing to just have somebody show their nice technique, whatever. So if you want to publish in a more scientific journal, you have to put some science to the table. And it doesn't have to be, but science doesn't have to be complicated. People are always then afraid, oh my God, no, I'm not a scientist. Listen, we can work, and we work together with many people, clinicians around the planet. It could be a simple idea, but you want to do it scientifically, and you want to evaluate it scientifically, meaning you have a certain method behind it.
So basically, I think what you said is very important, because we see an excess of clinical reports, an excess. Everybody wants to publish a clinical. Look how I do a crown lengthening, and that's not an article that is going to be cited. Nothing means very little, even if the pictures are beautiful and the surgery is beautiful. It's not a scientific article. So you already mentioned you have to start with a good question, either to support a specific material, specific technique, or to compare a situation, right? And then if you want to go to the top journals, you need to test your theory from the scientific standpoint, not just showing how you do something clinical.
Exactly. I mean, there's a place, and that's why I don't want to be, put down any clinical journals, because there are journals that are more clinically oriented, and that's great, because they are there to kind of filtrate the information, and it's why there's a place for more clinical journals as well. But you asked me about evidence-based and science, and in order to publish in those journals, you really want to put some science into that. And that means, you have to have a methodology, you have to have statistical analysis, all the good things. And then the structure is very simple. You have your introduction, you have your materials and methods, you come out with your results, and then you have the discussions. And actually, I tell you what, when I look at people that I mentor and have mentored over the years, the scientific aspect is sometimes not the most difficult to come up with. We can do a simple study on, material properties, physical properties, whatever. But then also to putting it together in an article is a different story. Because you also want to, make sure you cover the current literature on it. You discuss your results in the discussion section as it relates to the current literature. And so it's not just something you can, just pull out quickly. But this is why these are so meaningful and so worthy. And if you have a couple of these articles, under your belt, I think your clinical message and your nice technique that you're showing gets even more powerful. And because you put some meat to the bone. That's at least my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the way, and I think this is something so important. Unfortunately, this was a problem for me as a dental student in Brazil. Even though I was in a good dental school in undergrad, we had very little, or I was a very bad student, maybe. I cannot blame the teachers, but I had a very weak base, fundamentals on how to do research and how to write articles. I had kind of learned that later on. And I think this is so important and so powerful. Even if you are not picking an academic career, it's so good to talk to a clinician, and I have a few clinicians that I admire so much because they have the fundamentals of research and publications and how to structure these thoughts and how to support your ideas with science and become this curious clinician, as you mentioned, right?
Not everybody has to do the same thing. I think there's a place for all of us, and some maybe more on the clinic side, some more on the research side. I'm not, like I said, when you're a pure researcher, for example, which I admire as well, but they have a whole different career trajectory. Because if you are like a basic scientist, for example, and your whole career depends on one molecule that you're investigating, you think your career, you plan your career 5-10 years out, because then we're talking about funding, we talk about research support, grant support. That's a whole different process. As clinicians, everything happens much more quickly. We get the success much more quickly. So it's sometimes difficult to be in between, but my role is more to translate the research that we do and other people do, and then make it palpable for clinicians to find the right answers for the choices that they make.
Fantastic. Now, Markus, to finish, I want you to really, if you could, I know it's hard to take a successful career, a whole successful career like yours, and summarize in a few words. But for the people that are listening to us and are saying, I have passion for teaching, I have passion for education, I have passion for research. I can see myself, the youngers that are looking at you the same way you looked at your mentors when you were in school and say, I want to be like him.
Yep.
What are the main suggestions that you would give, or the main message that you would give to these younger people that want to build an academic career, and mainly even the young people that are from third world countries, people from Brazil, people from South America, that are listening and say, my dream would be to find a university in US. How do you start that journey? How do you apply for that possibility? How do you prepare yourself to capture the attention and find a position or find an opportunity?
Well, you mentioned that pretty much in the beginning as well. How the different points. I think be humble. Show what you got, and maybe have something that could add to the portfolio in that. But quite honestly, it's also contact the right people. And of course, we get many requests, but we're always open, for getting suggestions and people who are hungry and that they want to do more. I don't think there's a lack of that. Of course, I mean, the university has their own issues sometimes with politics and all that, which is a whole different story. I don't want to get into that at all, but it's not always rosy, I can tell you that much. But just if you seek your path, if you know your path, just follow it and work hard and look at and contact people. Don't be shy. And say, listen, I mean, this is what I can offer, and how about that? And I had people like that. I mean, I have mentees that just approached me at a meeting and said, hey, and I saw the lecture and said, hey, that's quite a good guy,
That's probably
a good guy.
That's probably a good suggestion. I open all my doors, all my professional doors, by going to good congresses and approaching the important people and saying something nice and good and useful to them on those few seconds that important people have to talk to unknown people, right?
Now, Yeah, that helps as well. And that's how I did it with Jared Sheesh. I mean, he didn't know me. I just approached him and said, "Listen, I mean, do you think there could be an opportunity for me?" And he looked at me like, "I don't. Do I know you?" But then the second point, he said, let's talk more." And that's how it works. Just yeah, that's how it works.
Just approach, and it doesn't hurt to ask for an opportunity. And
Absolutely.
specifically about you, Ben, if younger people want to find more information, how to apply, even to do a master's or to do a post-grad program, or to even as already with the graduations and the post-grad done in Brazil, for example, and I want to try something, where do they find information, from where they can start?
I mean, go on the websites. I'm just learning about the new world for me, like I said, which is tremendous. On the Instagrams and those resources, and getting more active there, hopefully. But just reach out, look at the websites. That's the front. But also, I think when you see the people, you see them presenting, on the different platforms, you also know it's also about what do you aspire to, or what do you like in a person. It has to be something that it's not just, hey, I go there and do this and that. It has to be some, maybe I'm getting too philosophic now, but it's some connection that you feel. You go like, hey, you know what? I really like this guy. I like the way he talks. I like the way, he portrays himself. I like the way what he does, the excellence he portrays, So it's more than just sending out 1,000 letters to every university. It's much more, hey, you know what? I have a connection with this person. I think we could be a great team. And when you feel that, and there's many people that are great, and I would not have that kind of connection, but I think that's a very important one as well, because it's not just about you or being in a certain spot. It's about what you can do together as a team, and for that I think the chemistry is a very important one. And if you get that chemistry, go for it, and then talk to the person. If the chemistry is there, they will react to it and say, you know what, I think we could work together. I like what you do. I like what I'm seeing. Let's get this going.
I think you nailed it. You mentioned a very important topic here. I think we gave a lot of suggestions of how to prepare yourself to a great academic opportunity. You mentioned one more, that is, you don't make it like a lottery. Oh, I'm gonna, whatever is good for me, I'm gonna just apply to 10, and instead of just find the person. Nowadays you can really see on social media, the speakers, the teachers, the professors. Find the one, see the university that that person is teaching, find the identification with the person, with the university, with the project, with the area that you like, and try to realize where that professor will be teaching, what meeting. Go to the meeting, meet the person.
Exactly.
And say, you're the guy.
No, but it's, Christian, it's so important that you say that. And I'm glad you do, because and because people should not misinterpret what you just said before. So it's not that you send 1,000 emails out to every university. Trust me, I'm getting like 20, 30, 40, 50 emails every single day, people who want to work with us. But then I see them misspelling my name, or misspelling the university, and I know exactly they're just sending it out to 10,000 universities.
That's it.
I'm sorry, I'm not even looking at those. But I look at it when you say, hey, Dr. Blatz, I really respect your research. I like what you do. And all of a sudden, they get like, hey, okay, that's and that's how you draw attention. But you want to be pointed also. You want to know where you're going to. It's not just shooting in the dark and hopefully you get lucky somewhere. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. Mm-hmm. You want to have a path, and you want to, like I said, have in your mind, this is the way I want to go. Yeah. And with this person also. It depends on personalities as well.
Envision your future. Envision where you want to be. Envision with whom you want to be, and then work the strategies to open that door. That's it, man. I think if I'm a young professional seeking that path, I will definitely hear this interview a couple of times and really re-exercise all the suggestions and insights that you shared with us. I think it was amazing, from somebody that really loves teaching and loves the academic teaching environment. I think this information was precious. So to finish, Markus, I just want you to give a final message to our community, to the people listening, during these very tough times, a positive energy, a positive message from Professor Markus Blatz from Philadelphia to the world.
I thank you so much, Christian, for doing this, and of course, it's great to be able to work with you, and I really appreciate that so much. But I look at it from my own experiences, and I said these things about my own struggles, not to make people feel sorry for me. It's the total opposite, because I always came out of it on the positive side. And you dig down, you do what you have to do, and don't question everything, and just go through it. And because I think it's bad as it sounds, but there is some benefits coming out of it. And you have to restructure, you have to rethink, and doing that is always, I think, a good thing, because you have to restructure yourself, and you look at the things that were bad, and then you go for the ones that's good. And I think it's going to have in the end of the day, it's going to be having a positive impact on everything that we do. Yeah. Sorry, of course, for the losses. I mean, I'm not diminishing that, and that's of course horrible. But I'm just thinking about how we can get out of this, and the people who can, and the people, of course, who are suffering. All our best heart goes out to you.
Okay, there's an interesting question here. One of the Marta just shared. Just ask before Markus finish. Just ask if he prefers drums or guitars.
I'm a drummer.
Yeah, I knew that was an easy one. That was an easy one. Fantastic, my friend. Just to close your thought here, I was thinking today about, instead of wishing to go back to normal, why not wish to go back to something even better than what we
exactly.
Right?
What is even normal? Come on, what's normal?
I wish to go back to normal. Don't wish that too much, because there's so many things that could be improved in the world.
Exactly right. Right.
Let's work.
And this makes us think.
Yeah, let's work for that. Fantastic. Thanks again, Markus.
Thank you.
That was amazing. That was awesome. This interview will be available on demand for anybody to watch on our Facebook page and on our YouTube, Christian Coachman YouTube, or DSD Community Facebook page. It's going to stay for 24 hours in the Instagram, of course. Watch it. If you are seeking an academic career, watch it. If you know somebody that is seeking an academic career, share with your friends, because this was an amazing interview, an amazing amount of important key strategies to succeed on that path. Thanks, everybody, for watching again. We will be back with Coffee Break with Coachman tomorrow. Markus, my friend, see you around. Hopefully next time in person in Philadelphia. Teaching together.
We have to come and teach, my friend.
We should do something online. Let's plan something online.
Of course.
Okay? We talk about it. Cheers.
Cheers.